I used to love the silence of the department store after hours. It was my sanctuary. As the head of visual merchandising for Harrington Sons, the historic 5-story flagship downtown, the night was my canvas. The clatter of the day would fade, the last customer would leave, and the vast, polished space would fall into a deep, cathedral-like hush. I'd be left alone with the mannequins, arranging them into elegant, lifeless tableaus under the dimmed security lights. I never found them creepy. I found them peaceful, blank slates. That was before I met the model we called Silas. He arrived in a shipment of new stock for our autumn collection. He was different from our usual, blandly handsome models. He was hyper-realistic, with finely etched crow's feet around his glass eyes, veins on the backs of his hands, and a slight, almost imperceptible asymmetry to his face that gave him a startlingly thoughtful expression. His name, Silas, was scrawled on the inside of his wrist in fading ink. We all commented on how lifelike he was. A little too lifelike, some of the junior stylists whispered. I decided to use him as the centerpiece for our main window display. It was a dramatic, minimalist scene, the lonely connoisseur. Silas was dressed in a sharp 3-piece tweed suit, positioned with his back to the window, facing a single antique armchair and a glass of prop whiskey on a side table. The idea was to create a sense of mystery, of a man lost in thought, his face unseen by the passing world. The first night after I set it up, the night guard Ray called me on the store radio. His voice was tight. "Evelyn, did you come back and adjust the main window?" "No, Ray. I left at 8. Why?" "Nothing. It's probably the new guy on patrol. He must have bumped it. Forget it." But he called again the next night. "Evelyn, seriously, did you change the display?" "I haven't touched it, Ray. What's wrong?" A long pause. "The mannequin. The one in the suit, his head. It's turned. Just a little. Like he's looking over his shoulder." A chill, thin and sharp, needled its way down my spine. "Don't be ridiculous. The joints are stiff. It probably just settled." "I'm telling you, Evie," he said, using a nickname he'd never used before, his voice low and serious. "It wasn't like that before." I dismissed it. Mannequins don't move. It was the cornerstone of my professional life. But the next morning, when I came in early to check, I saw it. Silas's head was no longer facing directly forward. It was cocked at a slight, almost elegant angle, as if he'd just heard a fascinating snippet of conversation from the street behind him. The pose was better, more natural. It unnerved me. I went into the display, my heels clicking on the faux wood floor, and firmly twisted his head back to its original position. The vinyl of his neck was cold and unyielding. The following week was a slow descent into a quiet madness. Every morning, Silas's head had moved. It was never a dramatic shift, just a few degrees. One day he was looking at the prop whiskey glass. The next he seemed to be gazing up at the store's grand, ornate ceiling. I'd move him back, my hands trembling. The silence of the empty store pressing in on me. I stopped telling anyone. They'd think I was crazy or incompetent. The real horror began the night I decided to work late. I was in my third-floor office, finishing paperwork. when I heard a sound from downstairs. A soft, distinct click, like a door closing. My heart leapt into my throat. Ray's patrol wasn't for another hour. I grabbed a heavy metal ruler from my desk and crept out onto the main sales floor. The store was a landscape of deep shadows and pools of dim light from the emergency exits. The mannequins stood in their silent groups, their forms ghostly in the half-dark. I scanned the area, my breath fogging slightly in the chilled air. Nothing. Then, my eyes were drawn to the main window. Silas was no longer facing the armchair. He had turned a full 180 degrees. He was now staring directly out of the window, his hands at his sides, his glass eyes fixed on the dark, empty street. The prop whiskey glass lay shattered on the floor, as if it had been knocked from the table. My blood turned to ice. I stood there, frozen, the ruler feeling like a toy in my hand. It was impossible. The mannequin's base was bolted to the floor. To turn that far, he would have had to unscrew himself. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a whimper, because in the profound silence it echoed. And then, slowly, with a faint dry creak of synthetic tendons, Silas's head turned away from the window. It turned towards me. It wasn't a jerky, mechanical movement. It was fluid, organic, the way a living person would turn to look at you. His painted eyes, which had always seemed vacant, now held a focus, an intelligence. They locked onto mine from across the dark store. The slight, asymmetrical smile on his face seemed to deepen, curving into something that was no longer thoughtful, but predatory. I didn't scream. I couldn't. The sound was trapped in my throat, a solid block of terror. I dropped the ruler. The clatter it made was obscenely loud in the silence. I ran. I didn't look back. I fled through the fire exit, setting off the alarm, and didn't stop running until I was 3 blocks away, sobbing on a public bench. I never went back. I quit my job over the phone the next day, giving no explanation. I heard they had to dismantle the display because, according to the girl who replaced me, the central mannequin's neck joint had seized up. They put Silas in long-term storage in the sub-basement. But sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about him. I think about the blank, waiting faces of all the other mannequins in that storage room. And I wonder if they're all just blank slates, waiting for the right moment to turn, waiting for the silence to teach them how to move. I can still feel his gaze on me, cold and patient. He's still there, and he's still turning.